I'm Taylor Cawley.
I'm Taylor St. Jacques.
And welcome back to NGP's Trials and Tribulations series. Taylor, let's pretend I haven't known you for many, many years. How did you get into riding?
So I got into riding. I was, I think, 4 years old when I went to my first lesson. My mom grew up in Western Canada on a farm, very backyard, had a horse, old barrel racer, I think, or cow penner, something Western, just as a hobby horse. She fell in love with the horses, and growing up I played all the sports. I did gymnastics, I did cheerleading, yikes, not for me. Soccer, hockey, basketball. And my mom took me to a riding lesson at a local barn, and at my first lesson I was posting the trot. And so I'd say kind of the rest is history after that. It was kind of wow, that's not normal, maybe she's meant to do this. So just kind of the love for the horse got me into it, and I had just a natural gift right from the start. So yeah, here we are today. Assuming I don't know you, and your parents that have been such a huge influence on myself and my career. What has your journey been like to this point?
Yes, so both my parents ride. Obviously, you know that. But they've definitely been huge supporters in my career up to this point, and will continue to be, I think, hopefully throughout my entire career. And I was the same. I have always loved the horses. I've always would much rather be in the barn mucking stalls, doing whatever other than being in school. Is definitely a big thing. I always took care of my ponies. I have always had horses, which I'm so fortunate to have. I've always had them in my life. But I think really having strong connections with the horses that I have is something that I really value in the sport. And catch riding, obviously you're no stranger to also, has been a really big part in my career also. Just getting to know all different kinds of horses, and then bringing things that I learned from different horses back to my own. So yeah.
I agree. I feel like we had kind of similar upbringing into our junior careers. Same thing with me. I had, my first pony that I owned, and then up until I think 2016, all I did was catch ride. Working student, working off bills. You guys are familiar with that. And I think that's what has really shaped both of us into who we are, both as riders and horsewomen, and just women in general. I feel like we both kind of were very mature from a young age, and are pretty well respected by much older, people that, don't have to respect us if they don't want to, but I feel like we've kind of earned it. And that's something that I take pride in, and I've loved to watch you do through the years too. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So I'm going to offer you some unsolicited advice about college. I know going into it is a big question mark, unknown, kind of being on a team is something brand new, and especially coming fresh out of the equitation, where it's kind of every man for themselves, and, friends outside of the ring, but when it's showtime, nobody likes each other.
Nope.
Very cutthroat. Some unsolicited advice towards that is going into the team, it's a totally different world. I know from experience that the first time that I rode for the team at Auburn, I had to take a minute and realize what was going on around me, because I did not have the best round in my life, let me tell you. And all 39 other girls on the team were whooping and cheering like I just laid it down at medal finals. And I almost had to chuckle, because I was like, guys, my round was not that good. 4 whoops from Andre, and you guys are way outdoing Andre. But that's something that you learn to really appreciate, and taking that and your 4 years in college and having such a team aspect and structure, applying that to kind of your next step in your career whether that's even just, going back to the barn as an amateur for a few years and then stepping into your professional career, you really start to value teamwork and the true meaning behind it, not just, oh yeah, we ride at the same barn, or, obviously behind the scenes is the most important part to success for anyone, any horse, any rider. But you kind of will earn a whole new appreciation for the team side of it coming out of school. And that's something that definitely took me a minute to learn. And I think a lot of us can speak for that as well. But that's definitely something that's going to be a little bit of a culture shock at first. So I'm excited for you to go there and experience that, and, stepping away from it, just being a better person overall.
And you've ridden on Nations Cup teams and young riders teams. How would you say that compares to some of the, would you say like the college riding helped you adjust to that, or the pressure wise?
I think so. I related a lot to like championships at school, like SEC championships, national championships. It comes down to 4 rides. I think they might have changed the format now over the past couple of years, but back when I was in school, it was 4 rides. And your ride mattered. There was no drop score. There was no, 5th score to, maybe one person didn't have the best round, but, the other 4 people did their part, for that discipline, and then you have the rest of your team. But I definitely related to nationals, where like the stakes were high and all the emotions were high, and, you have extra loud cheerleaders in the stands, and down at the in-gate, it's a little more like intense, not just like, regular meet day, everybody's having fun, happy to be there. But I think it definitely helped me mentally, when it came to like focusing and really worrying about what was at stake right in that moment, and not worrying about, other things, or not being 100% in the moment. It definitely correlates for sure. So with all your big championship wins and finals wins, talk me through a little how you dealt with that pressure.
I'd say pressure has been kind of a common occurrence for me growing up throughout the ponies and quickly moving into the equitation and the jumper ring. It's always something I've been kind of exposed to in small doses throughout the ponies. The ponies and the equitation are quite similar in that aspect. It's very cutthroat, and your friends are not always your friends, but we're not going to get into that part of it. I would say I'm a very naturally dramatic person. I'm a very emotional person, which is something that I've had to deal with a lot, I think, in my riding. The highs are high, the lows are low. I get really, really excited, and then I get really, really sad, and it's still something I work on in my riding, my emotions. I can remember a moment specifically at Maclay Finals in 2024. I was on top in the first round. I was not nervous going into the first round. I was very confident. I was feeling good, and my horse felt really, really good, and I knew I had a shot, and I feel like I rode my best in that round. And then on the flat, I got moved down a spot, and I had made a mistake. I had made a mistake in the flat, and I got moved down. And I remember I was like, what is the point? Why am I here? And I think having that strong kind of group around you, your tight-knit group around you that understands you, understands your partnership with your horse, understands my emotions, was really important for me, because they honestly talked me off a cliff. And it was a really small deduction. It wasn't a big thing, but I remember going into the test. I have never been that nervous in my life walking into the ring before, and I think over many years of practice under pressure is the only thing that got me through that. I'd say exposure therapy almost. And at the end of the day, at the end of that day, it was the best feeling. And I've also had days where that hasn't worked out, and it can be the worst feeling. But something I still work on day in and day out is regulating my emotions, trying to keep the highs high but in check, and the lows in check, definitely. When you were a junior and you were balancing equitation and the jumpers, how did you handle that? going back and forth between the 2 rings?
Honestly, in my mind, I almost made them the same. The horse I had at that time in my junior career, my junior jumper, he was naturally a fast horse. So thinking about time allowed, speed, wasn't really what was on my mind. And he was, a bloody competitive horse. So when I rode him, it was all about smoothness. And I feel that when you do the equitation, you're kind of accomplishing the same thing, like getting to a distance that gives your horse the best chance to make the best jump while it being smooth and you holding your position. I really, and it's even to this day, okay, my position has gone a little out the window through the years as it's become less important day to day. But I really thought of it as the same thing. And then when it came to the jump off, obviously you incorporate the flat work that kind of you learn through the equitation of, okay, to make this turn a little tighter, I'm going to think a little haunches in through this turn. So my horse is on his hind end and, turning quicker than someone that's maybe going faster, but a little wider than the track I took. So that was something that I the way I approached it was on my jumper, I tried to make it an equitation round. And I feel like through that, I gained a lot of confidence. Even when I was like jumping bigger tracks for the first time, like it was never that big of a deal. Like, I luckily had a horse that gave me a lot of confidence. And when I walked in the ring, there was never anything that I really needed to worry about other than like, how do I give him a ride to clear the jumps? So that was kind of my approach to it. And even to this day, like whenever I train or teach or give a clinic or something, the jumper kids, I'm always like, hey, like keep it smooth. Like I know you're not being judged, or, your position doesn't really matter, or, your rein length or the smoothness around the turn. But at the end of the day, it changes how your horse goes. It changes how your horse jumps. And if your horse is with you in the moment and listening, as opposed to worrying about flipping their head or, kind of swapping leads, you're naturally going to be that much faster than someone else. So that was something that an approach I took that I think helped me a lot and also helped my confidence.
Now that we're both signed with NGP, which I'm super excited about, what are some goals that you're looking forward to in the upcoming weeks, months, year?
Well, something I'm super excited about is having a team aspect again, that all have the same goal in mind and all are hard workers and gifted, talented riders. It's a really cool feeling, growing up, being kind of on your own, just, riding within barns. Now being with a group of girls again with the same goal in mind is pretty cool. It's very uplifting, I'd say. But I definitely, my goals with this is to form more connections. I've never been one that goes out and makes my own connections. I think I've done that once in my entire life. Thank goodness it works, because I would never speak to a stranger again if it didn't. But that's something that I hope to gain out of this. And, with the board and, the girls all being from, different areas of the world, really. Even just within the riders, I'm forming new connections and, through those people, their connections. So that's what I think I'm most excited about, is forming all these new connections, whether it's in a business way or a personal way. And that's kind of my biggest goal out of this. I obviously love working with the horses, always have, always will. But this is like the connections part is kind of a new territory for me, and that's what I'm most excited about, getting into and stepping out of my comfort zone for. What are you most excited for, or what are you looking for goal-wise with NGP?
I'd say I'm really excited to work with some young horses, and I feel like having, like you said, the board around us with so much expertise from so many different angles and vantage points. I'm really excited for all of the new kind of experiences I can get throughout this program. Again, really excited to try and open up my horizons with new connections, meeting new people, finding new horses, also looking into the how we look for horses side of things, which I'm a little bit new, which I'm very new to actually. But I feel like I've already learned so much with the people on the board and the other riders. A lot of riders coming from Europe and showing in Europe, I think, is a really cool thing to hear all the fun stories about and learn some things from. And having you guys, having somebody at the ring even to look over and be like, hey, what did you think in that line? Or, hey, what do you think about this turn? Has already been so beneficial to me thus far, and I'm really excited to see what more is to come.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Tell me a low of your career and a high of your career and what you learned from each of them.
I would say a low of my career is a bit more of a mental low. I think working through the equitation as a junior is, even at all disciplines as a junior, I think can be a little bit taxing on your mental sanity in a way. I think, you have college as your next step or not college as your next step. You're worrying about if you're going to get into a college or kind of what your next steps are going to be. I think that was really difficult for me, kind of choosing what path I wanted to take. I think I learned a lot from that as well. I think Auburn was right there with me the whole time. I was really behind on school, and they made sure I caught up, and it was really reassuring to see kind of how much they wanted me, and I had to work hard for it in my schoolwork, but I did learn a lot from it, and I think I'm so excited now to be going. I would say a high, I'm going to use this week's high. I think I showed my horse Classical on the field this week in the U25, and I was double clear, and I haven't shown him on the grass in a year, and he was amazing. He was so good, and I'm just super happy after that. So I think that's the first thing that comes to mind right now. I think I learned a lot from that because I was a little bit unsure in the beginning of the year when we were going over our schedules what classes I was going to be able to do with him. So I think being able to have done that class with him last week and having it go really well was really reassuring to me because I was unsure in the beginning. So yeah. How about you? What's a high, a low, and what did you learn from both in your career so far?
So I think a high of my career was probably back in my junior days, my Washington Medal Finals win. I rode my horse Samarano. D. Samarano was his show name. Charisma was my superstar. Charisma had done a lot of classes up to that point, and we didn't want him doing 4 finals in a row. So we let Samo kind of have his time to shine. And on the way up to Washington, when Andre called and said, "This is the final Samo's doing," I cried. I had won a lot of classes on him, but I had never done him in a championship before. Charisma was my, go-to guy for the championship classes. And I was nervous, didn't know what to expect. I didn't have the best rounds in the hunter phase and the jumper phase. They were good, but not great. I think I came back 8th after the hunter phase, or 9th after the hunter phase, and I was 7th overall after the jumper phase, coming back to the test. And somehow, by the grace of God, ended up jumping all the way up to 1st. That was a really cool experience. I think that I learned that I really can trust not just my horse, but everyone around me to make the right decision and have my best interest in mind. Kind of growing up as a catch rider, you kind of have to fend for yourself a little bit and make some hard choices of, okay, yes, I want to ride more horses, but is this one really beneficial to my career? And so to have to put that decision in somebody else's hands and trust it and go with it was really rewarding. And I think it was a big moment for me to learn to trust other people, and things will work out. So that was probably my high. A low of my career, probably my freshman year of college. Yeah, coming down to WEF, my freshman year of college, I had just come out of winning the equitation finals and having probably the best year of my entire life in hunters, jumpers, and equitation, starting at Auburn. And when I came down here for WEF, I hadn't ridden, a real horse in a minute, and tried to go like right back into the highs in the National Grand Prix. And all of a sudden I started like picking bad distances and having random rails that I've never had before, and like totally forgot how to track ride. And it definitely took a lot of confidence out of me, stripped me a lot. And that was something that I had to kind of overcome. And I think that right after WEF that year is when I started with your parents, and they definitely instilled that confidence back into me. And, it's okay to make a mistake. Like, nobody's ever perfect. It was kind of your junior career. You have to be perfect every time you walk into the ring. And now as an amateur, like, it's okay to be an amateur sometimes. And, your mom and I still to this day laugh about some of my like really good misses and really bad rounds. And I think that was something that I had to learn how to laugh at instead of be upset over and emotional about. And I think that's really helped shape me as a person as well, and not be so hard on myself. Well, once again, I'm Taylor St. Jacques.
I'm Taylor Cawley.
And thanks for tuning in to this episode of NGP's Trials and Tribulations series.